I'm going to teach you how to set up for a rappel at the top of a pitch, rappelling on a single strand of rope, and using a firefighter's belay as your rappel backup. First thing I'm going to do is clip into the anchor with my personal protection leash and do 2 points of the anchor for redundancy. Next thing, I'm going to set up my rappel device, clipping it to my belay loop. I'm going to make sure that you put the rope through the carabiner. Once I've done that, it is time to do safety checks. In the Mazamas, we use the acronym BARC as a checklist to verify our rappel setup. So the B in BARC is for your belt and buckles. I'm going to make sure that my buckles are double backed. My belt is nice and tight. A is for anchors. Just in a double check and make sure everything looks good. Make sure that your rope is attached and whatever hardware you're using is locked. R is for rappel device. I want to make sure that the rope is going through the rappel device, around the carabiner. That carabiner is locked, and through my belay loop. The K is for knots. I want to be sure that there are knots at the end of my rope to close this system and that the rope is on the ground. Now that I've verified my rappel setup, I'm ready to rappel. To do that, I'm going to weight the system. I'm going to choke up, make sure that my weight is on my rappel device, which is on my harness, not on my personal protection leash. Once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and take my pro out. Double check that my firefighter belay rappel backup is ready, and I'm ready to rappel. Gavin, on rappel. I'm going to teach you how to set up for a rappel at the top of a pitch, rappelling on a single strand of rope and using an auto block as a rappel backup. First thing I'm going to do is clip my personal protection leashes into the anchor. This time I've used 2 leashes, 1 into each of the anchor points. Next thing I'm going to do is set up my auto block hitch. Now I'm going to go ahead and clip mine to the inside of my leg loop so that it won't interfere with my belt buckle. Now to tie this hitch, you simply wrap your piece of cordage, or in this case I have a hollow block, around the rope 3 to 4 times. I'm going to do 4 since this rope is quite thin. Make sure that it is working. I'm going to pull up on the rope and it catches. So next I'm going to set up my rappel device. Make sure that the rope goes through the carabiner. Alright, so now we're going to go through our acronym BARC to check our rappel setup. B is for buckles and belts. Buckles are double backed. Belt is nice and tight. A is for anchor. Rope is set up on the anchor. Hardware is locked. Rappel device, rope goes through the rappel device, through the carabiner, locked on the belay loop. Now here on the rappel check, we are going to include our auto block hitch check. Make sure that it's on your leg loop, on the rope, and locked. And then K for knots at the end of the rope so that we close our system and the rope is on the ground. Now that we've checked our rappel setup, we are ready to rappel. So first thing, we're going to weight the system. I'm going to choke up on our rappel device. And now that we're using an auto block hitch as our backup, we need to choke up on that as well. Now make sure that you have at least a hand's width distance between your rappel device and your auto block so that your auto block doesn't get jammed in your rappel device. All right, ready to go. Now I'm going to teach you how to rappel on 2 strands of rope, again using the auto block as your rappel backup. So the first thing we're going to do is set up our auto block, again on the inside of your leg loop to avoid interfering with this buckle. Now this time we have 2 strands of rope instead of 1, so I'm only going to use 3 wraps, and I'm also going to be very careful to wrap both strands of rope. go ahead and pull up on that and make sure that it catches. And then next I'm going to put my rappel device on, making sure that you insert both strands of rope through your rappel device and through the carabiner. Now we're ready to check our rappel setup using bark. My buckles are double backed, harness is nice and tight, anchor looks good, the rope is through the hardware is locked. My rappel device is the rope going both strands through the rappel device around the carabiner. Carabiner is locked through my belay loop. Auto block is through the leg loop, grabbing both strands, and the carabiner is locked. I have knots in the end of my rope to close the system, and the rope is on the ground. Now that we've checked our rappel setup, we are ready to rappel, so I'm going to weight the system, making sure I also remember to choke up on my auto block, and again, at least a hand's distance between your auto block and your rappel device. And we are ready to go.